From the Cronkite studios in downtown Phoenix, this is Cronkite News.
Reaching their dreams of going to college can be difficult for kids in rural areas. How some high schools are helping students reach the next chapter of their lives.
With the holiday season upon us, many people like to give back to their communities. How a website is helping people get out and volunteer.
And the construction industry has seen an increase in job openings, but not as much of an increase in interest. How Valley programs are working to get kids interested in building the future.
Cronkite News starts now.
Good evening and welcome to Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Kate Pfeiffer.
And I'm Carla Liriano. Thank you for joining us. Tonight, a renewed commitment from the president of the largest public university in the country. President Michael Crow is standing by dreamers and students attending Arizona State University under the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals Plan, known as DACA. In a letter sent to the ASU community this afternoon, Crow said the legal status of these students has not changed, but if it does in the future, ASU would work to find private funding for DACA students to continue to receive in-state tuition. Crow summarized his points by writing, ASU will continue to advance the economic competitiveness of our state through the education of all qualified students. The future of Arizona's economic competitiveness requires that we have an educated workforce. As our founders recognized, it is essential to our democracy.
There's an education gap across Arizona, and the accessibility of a college education may depend on where you live. Counties in Arizona that are not home to a major university have significantly lower bachelor degree completion rates than those that are. Maricopa, Pima, and Coconino counties all have bachelor degree completion rates of 30% or higher, while the rest of the state ranges from 24 to 10%. Charity Bittigan shows us what high schools are doing to combat those low numbers.
It's just hard. It's like whether you want to stay near your family or whether you want to go and branch out. And it's like the whole thing that you don't really know what's going to happen after. And it's scary.
Viviana Galvez is a senior at Tombstone High School, wrestling with a tough decision as she attends a college fair. Pursue a degree and leave her family, or stay in her small town. Her plight is the same as other graduating seniors in rural Arizona.
It's kind of hard here because nobody really takes the time to look at Tombstone because we're all the way out here.
Cassidy Hancock drives 20 miles each way to go to school. She wants to go to college to become a forensic anthropologist on a softball scholarship, but she's not sure if that's going to happen. High school academic counselors in Cochise and Santa Cruz counties are working hard to give their students the opportunities and preparation they will need to complete a 4-year degree, starting as early as possible.
The most heartbreaking thing a counselor can hear, and I do hear it in April or May, is I wish I woulda.
Mindy Sherman has been the academic guidance counselor at Benson High School for 16 years. She says schools are required to help students prepare education and career action plans, and the earlier the students start thinking like that, the better.
We have to find personality, interest, values, so we start in the 9th grade doing that.
Despite their rural locations and Title I status, all 3 schools, Patagonia Union High School, Benson High School, and Tombstone High School, have graduation rates that exceed the state average and 90% or above attendance rates. And if a student's path doesn't lead to a university campus, there are plenty of options.
Find something that you want to do, that meets what your skill set is, that meets what you're about as a person. And whatever it is you want to do will help you get there.
In southern Arizona, Charity Bittigan, Cronkite News.
As the holiday season kicks into gear, many are thinking of giving, but community help is needed year-round. Now, one service organization is matching charities with people who love to give back. Jesse Canales reports how volunteers are just a click away from serving the community.
This shirt looks very new.
Charities rely on others to help out, whether it be a donation,
no stains on that one,
or a helping hand.
I think I've been a volunteer all my life.
Kate Hemberlin dedicates much of her time working for numerous charities and says she drew the inspiration to give back from her mother.
My mother died 15 years ago, and it threw me into like a really bad depression. And finally, I just decided that I needed to get out of myself.
She honors her mother's memory through volunteering and says she believes her mother would be proud.
You know, she used always that analogy of a spoon, because if you turn a spoon towards you like you would eat, you're upside down, and when you turn it towards other people and serve other people, you're right side up.
She says finding charities to volunteer her time to became a lot easier through Just Serve, a free organization created by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
The goal of Just Serve and what it does is it matches volunteers with organizations that need volunteers. It's as simple as that.
One of the charities she connected with through Just Serve is Fans Across America, a charity organization that provides clothing and school supplies to homeless children and victims of domestic violence.
One of the questions we get is, are you sure you need this many volunteers? Do you have enough stuff for us to do? It is a constant influx of things in and things out.
With all the donations piling up, they look towards Just Serve and were able to get volunteers like Hamberlin to lighten the load. Hamberlin says she hopes her children follow in her footsteps and are inspired by her volunteer work as she was by her mother's. In Chandler, Jessica Nolles, Cronkite News.
Just Serve screens all the charities beforehand. Just Serve says that they have hundreds of volunteer projects across the state, and anyone that feels the holiday spirit of giving back can go to justserve.org.
Arizona has always been known as a boom-bust industry when it comes to construction, but labor shortages have slowed the pace of recovery. Reporter Anthony Marroquin took a look at why that is and what's being done to ensure the future of the trades.
The average age of a construction worker is in the high 40s and 50s, according to business owners. And considering that training for these jobs takes months or even years, experts say that it's time to start training their replacements now.
At the age of 22, I came out of the Arizona State Deli Webb School of Construction. I was the youngest person on the job site. I'm 37 years old today. I'm still often the youngest person on the job site.
Aaron Genoba is the co-founder of Venue Builders. He sees the need for well-trained construction workers every day. As the economy has picked up, so have the amount of active construction sites. And Mark Stapp, executive director of the Masters of Real Estate Development at ASU, says you can see it all over the state.
It's not just going to occur in downtown Phoenix or, around the Tempe campus. We see it happening in downtown Gilbert and downtown Mesa, downtown Chandler.
But recovery has been much slower than in the past.
Good carpenters, good electricians, pipe fitters, everything you can imagine in construction. There just aren't enough skilled laborers out there.
Phoenix City Councilwoman Deborah Stark says the city is trying to help by getting a younger generation excited about the industry. Stark says college is not fit for everyone and that construction can be just as viable of a career choice.
And we need to show these students that there are other opportunities that will equate to good paying jobs.
Experts point at the popular stigma that construction is a fallback for those who fail as the most damaging factor.
That stigma has deprived the industry of an entire generation of skilled workers.
People in the industry also claim that construction provides a sense of fulfillment that desk jobs cannot replicate.
It's so much fun to drive around town and look at the things that you've contributed to and be proud of them. And I don't know that there are a lot of workplaces where you have that sense of accomplishment.
The City of Phoenix has partnered with College Depot to help educate students about the possibilities within the construction industry and help them get connected with apprenticeships. In Phoenix, Anthony Marroquin, Cronkite News.
As new housing developments continue to be built across the state, new home sales dropped almost 2% last month. But the overall year outlook is still positive. The Commerce Department says that despite the drop in home sales last month, sales through the first 10 months of 2016 are 12.7% higher than last year. Sales dipped in almost every part of the country except the West, which saw an improvement in housing sales in October.
The largest archive of municipal sewage sludge in the nation is right here at ASU. Reporter Zach Moran gives us a look into this lab and how it gathers data about the health of communities in a way you might not expect.
This is where we store a lot of our samples.
This probably isn't what you'd find in your freezer. Rows and rows of jars, all filled with sludge from sewage centers around the country. Researchers at ASU's National Sewage Sludge Repository studied these samples to gather clues about the behavior and health of urban populations.
We're interested in protecting people and improving public health. And so the question for us is, how do we find out what is happening in the city?
And the answer? Wastewater. Dr. Holden says raw sewage contains a wealth of information about a city. He says it can reveal patterns in everything from the chemicals being flushed down our sinks to drug usage and even our diets.
We use wastewater treatment plants as observatories where we can understand the chemistry and the biology of the people.
The lab gathers hundreds of samples from wastewater treatment facilities like the one right here in Mesa.
Raw sewage coming in the headworks is screened for larger pieces of material and things that will gum up our pumps, such as wipes and plastics. Syringes come through now and then.
And Dr. Holden hopes to turn all this collected data into a public health dashboard that tells communities how they're performing and where they should invest resources to improve overall health.
And we feel that our dashboard will help to identify which interventions work, and then hopefully we can bring them to different cities, different communities, and improve health across the United States and ultimately around the world.
And he's confident that this lab will help make a difference worldwide. In Phoenix, Zach Moran, Cronkite News.
The lab has an emphasis on detecting harmful chemicals in consumer products, like the ones found in antibacterial soaps, which were recently banned by the FDA.
Those hitting the road this evening for the Thanksgiving holiday won't have to deal with Arizona road closures. That's according to the Arizona Department of Transportation, who says no highways will be closed for the holiday weekend. Current work zone restrictions, however, will remain in effect, including narrowed lanes on both the I-19 near Tucson and the I-40 near the California border. ADOT says to expect an increase in police presence across the state.
The making of guitars is an art, one that can help people change their lives.
Coming up on Cronkite News, how the country's longest-running guitar building school is leaving a lasting impact on graduates.
Plus, the annual battle between ASU and the team down south is only a few days away. We'll take a look at the history of the long-standing rivalry.
I think I finally found my hallelujah. I've been waiting for this moment all my life now. All my dreams are coming true, yeah. I've been waiting for this moment. It's good to be alive right about now. Now.
After 40 years, a guitar building school in Arizona is now the country's longest-running guitar building school. Reporter Adriana D'Alba spoke with graduates who say the school has impacted their careers.
After serving students for more than 40 years, the Roberto Venn School of Luthery is now the country's longest-running guitar building school. I sat down with one graduate to find out the impact it's had on his career.
The smell of fresh wood fills the air at the Roberto Venn School of Luthery in Phoenix.
I remember the first day I strung up my first guitar, and when these guys string up their first guitar, it's pretty funny because they just walk around in a daze.
That same feeling is the reason John Reuter continues to build and play guitars.
Don't ask me why.
His life is dedicated to passing on the craft to students at the same school where he built his first guitar back in the summer of '84.
They say when you love what you do, you're never working, so there's got to be a reason why I've been doing this for 32 years and hop out of bed every morning.
You can bet the instructor can build pretty much anything that involves wood. Just ask one of the 1,500 students he's taught.
Now, there's always got to be like a master, and I kind of view him as that.
John is so dedicated to his students, he lost a few tools along the way. When his hand went through the blades of a machine, he was left with only 3 fingers on his playing hand.
I thought, wow, I don't think I'm going to be playing my gig tonight. And then I thought, well, I don't think I'm going to be playing another gig ever.
But 2 years later, the musician found the courage to pick up his guitar again. And ever since, John and his band, the Noodles, have played at a small Ahwatukee bar each Sunday, covering the songs of the late 60s rock band Grateful Dead.
The most talented two-finger guitarist I know, that's for sure.
It turns out no accident would stop John Reuter from having the best of both worlds, teaching and playing the instrument he loves.
There were two things I thought I would never be. Number one was a teacher, and number two was a musician, and here I am doing both, and that's my life. Go figure.
Between teaching and performing with his band at Cactus Jack's, John also sells custom instruments through his company, Reuter Guitars. Adriana de Alba, Cronkite News.
One of the biggest Arizona football games of the year is this weekend.
Coming up on Cronkite News, the history of the Territorial Cup and the importance of the rivalry to both teams.
Thanksgiving is tomorrow, but this weekend is stuffed with other events. What will the weather look like for those events? I'll have your full forecast up here next on Cronkite News.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I'm always searching to feel like I fit into something.
We are the people that we are because of our past.
It's complicated. They said we never make it this far. But
I'm just one of many who stopped being silent.
they said the fight would break us. The struggle helped to make who we are.
It's just proof of how far we have come.
Make sure in all the hustle and bustle, we don't lose sight of why we're here.
It all boils down to communicating the lives we live.
If you look closely, they've got a story to tell.
It connects with you in a very deep way.
We wish you love, peace, and soul.
Come with us on this great adventure.
The Phoenix Zoo is brightening the holiday season in the Valley once again. The zoo kicks off its 25th annual Zoo Lights tradition tonight. This video is from last year's celebration, and guests can expect the familiarity of millions of lights around the zoo and lakeside music shows with dancing lights. Django the talking giraffe will light up youngsters' faces again this year as well. And the zoo is excited to have some new displays and even a 4D presentation of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. The event runs through January 8th and is open nightly from 5:30 to 10:30 p.m.
Friday night, the next chapter in one of college football's oldest rivalries unfurls in Tucson, when Arizona State and Arizona do battle for the 91st time. But as Christina Vicario explains, a former Sun Devil football player created a way for the battle for bragging rights to go year-round.
As a tight end at Arizona State in the late 1980s, Gary Knutson experienced the Territorial Cup football game firsthand. But 7 years ago, he saw a way to increase the level of competition between ASU and Arizona throughout the year.
It occurred to me that, hey, we've got the oldest rivalry trophy in college sports in the Territorial Cup. So why not play off that and simply refer to it as the Territorial Cup Series.
The series awards points across all varsity sports to either the victor in the head-to-head contest between the two schools or the higher finisher in Pac-12 championship competition, depending on the sport. But to the football programs, winning the Territorial Cup is just as important as capturing the series trophy.
As a department, we talk about wanting to obviously be one of the top programs in the Pac-12. Well, first of all, we got to be the top program in the state of Arizona. And we want them to know how important it is to beat our rivals, to beat ASU.
It means a lot. It goes back to the earlier days when Arizona State was first established, and there's a lot of history that goes into it, tradition, and anytime you play those guys from the South, it's a big-time game.
While it is important to the programs, it's also important to the fans who often find themselves rooting against family members around the table at Thanksgiving.
You think about that Thanksgiving weekend as rivalry weekend in college football, and that really makes a special weekend. Families gather around for the holidays, for Thanksgiving, and then here in the state of Arizona, you either say that you're a Wildcat or you're a Sun Devil. And that defines a lot of people who they are.
Arizona Stadium will be splotched in fall colors this weekend as legions of fans doused in red, maroon, and gold will travel to the game to root their team to the cup. In Tempe, I'm Christina Vicario, Cronkite News.
And if you're planning on going to Tucson for the Territorial Cup, will the weather cooperate for kickoff?
Sarah Lichterman has your holiday weekend and event forecast.
Yes, the duel in the desert, as we know it, the Territorial Cup is this Friday at 7:30 p.m. down in Tucson. What is the weather going to look like? 48 degrees, clear skies. Make sure to bundle up if you are headed down south. Football, food, Macy's Day Parade, of course, Thanksgiving tomorrow. But what's going to look like during the day here in the valley? A high of 75 and a low of 54 degrees. You might want to have your Thanksgiving feast outside tomorrow during the day. Here's what it looks like across the country. These are your highs for today. 77 in Miami and 73 in Phoenix. As we go further north, it does cool down. 49 in Portland and 48 in New York. And taking a closer look into the region, 54 in Phoenix. Here are your lows tomorrow morning, waking up at 6 a.m., 24 in Flagstaff and 57 in Yuma. Here's what the rest of the week is going to look like. For Thanksgiving, 75 degrees. It does go into 54 degrees at night. So if you are camping out for Black Friday, make sure to bundle up for those deals. Going into the weekend, there is a drastic difference between Saturday and Sunday. There is zoo lights, so if you are going to the zoo lights on Sunday, make sure to wear a couple extra layers. Sarah Lichterman, Cronkite Weather.
After a tense election season, many are dreading talking about politics over mashed potatoes and turkey.
Coming up on Cronkite News, how people are planning on dealing with angry family members around the Thanksgiving table.
The confidence to lead our country.
This isn't reality television.
I feel like Hamilton reached out from history and wouldn't let me go until I told his story.
I make no apology for my actions. I would do the same again.
How we come so far and yet have so far to go.
Right there, coming up.
In 1920s Melbourne,
Careful with the hand luggage. My pistol's in there somewhere and it may still be loaded.
Phryne Fisher is a detective.
Things could get interesting around here.
Thought they already were.
Who isn't afraid to live a little.
I hope you're not concealing a dangerous weapon under that skirt.
I'm concealing a lot of things. Why do you think you can just run off on your own? Because I'm carrying a gun.
The irresistible series, Miss Fisher's Murder Mysteries.
Saturday night at 10 on Arizona PBS.
As people begin to prep for their turkey feast tomorrow, 2 turkeys are being spared from the dining room table. The traditional presidential pardoning of a turkey is today. President Obama chose a turkey to pardon in honor of Thanksgiving. This year, it's tater and tot. The White House introduced the turkeys on their website and held a Twitter poll where Team Tot won with 51% of the vote. President Obama has pardoned 2 turkeys every year he has been in office. While only one can have the official title as the National Thanksgiving Turkey, both turkeys will have a home being sent to Virginia Tech, where students and veterinarians will care for the birds.
This Thanksgiving, some might want to give thanks that the elections are finally over. But given how controversial this campaign season was, extra guests might be at the table. Sabella Scalise is in Washington, D.C. with tips on how to get past the politics while saying pass the gravy.
As people head home for the holidays, they are preparing for a different type of conversation around this year's table.
There will be turkey with a side of politics, I suppose. For a lot of families, it will be impossible to avoid this topic on Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving travelers have mixed feelings on the possibility of mixing politics with potatoes.
Yeah, sure. We'll talk politics. We talk politics the way most people talk sports.
Gosh, I would so rather avoid that subject. I don't want to talk about it at all.
Etiquette expert Crystal Bailey has some suggestions to avoid a food fight.
I think if you're going to bring up politics, to first think about why you're bringing it up. Are you bringing it up so that we have this hot topic, fiery debate that's going to, end in everyone walking away from the table in the middle of dinner? Or are you bringing it up to learn something and to get an understanding of what everyone has to say?
Other Thanksgiving travelers offered their suggestions and topics for families that want to avoid politics altogether.
Trips, future travel plans, New Year resolutions, what we're going to do in the next year, professional plans, families, things like that, I guess.
It's going to come up, and then we're just going to say, drink your champagne, just shush.
In Washington, D.C., Sabella Scalise, Cronkite News.
If you're feeling a little tipsy as family makes their way to town tonight, AAA Arizona is making sure you have a safe ride home. AAA's Tipsy Tow service will be offered starting tonight through Thanksgiving morning. Anyone can call Tipsy Tow, drivers, passengers, or bartenders. You don't need a membership to use the service, and it's free for up to 10 miles. To request a Tipsy Tow, just call 1-800-AAA-HELP and ask for a Tipsy Tow.
Cronkite News is proud to be the news division of Arizona PBS. Here's what's coming up on Arizona Horizon and PBS NewsHour.
On the next Arizona Horizon, it's our monthly conversation with Phoenix Mayor Greg Stanton, who will discuss how the city will deal with illegal immigrants in a Trump administration. And we'll take a look at the Shop Small movement.
I'm Judy Woodruff. On the next NewsHour, David Brooks, Ruth Marcus, and a host of others on how to talk to your family this Thanksgiving. That's Wednesday on the PBS NewsHour.
And a special reminder, the Cronkite School honored CBS Evening News anchor Scott Pelley earlier this week. If you'd like to watch Pelley's speech in its entirety, tune into Arizona PBS this Friday at 5 for a special 1-hour presentation from the Cronkite Luncheon.
And that's it for Cronkite News tonight. Thanks for joining us.
For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.